All right, let's move on to the skill positions then for the AFC South. Battle for last place. Who you got?
So I'm actually going to put the Texans here again. If you watched our AFC quarterback video, then you know that we talked about how the team around Davis Mills not very good, and it's not very good this year. Now, I like that they went out and got Marlon Mack. That's a former 1,000-yard rusher. People need to put some respect on his name. People forget that this dude was a stud for Indy before he tore his Achilles, and then Jonathan Taylor got drafted. You know, it's just bad luck for him there. I think Marlon Mack still has the juice. And they also drafted Dameon Pierce, not a guy that I knew until like 3 weeks ago, but a lot of people saying that this guy is probably going to at some point take the job from Marlon Mack. He's looked good in the preseason and the action that he got. He's explosive. He's a big body. It'll be interesting to see how good he can be for the Texans. And then you go to their wide receivers, Brandon Cooks, one of the most consistent receivers in the league. He gets overshadowed a lot because it seems like he just goes places and gets paid, but he ends up on teams that aren't great or kind of underutilized on the great teams that he was on. But he seems to always get 1,000 yards. I feel like he's always right around 1,000 or over 1,000. So Brandon Cooks is nice. A lot of people saying Nico Collins is in for a big second year. We'll see how that goes. He was all right the tail end of his rookie year, so maybe a guy to look at. And then Chris Conley was the only other guy of a name that anybody knows. He's a depth piece. And then they have Brevin Jordan at tight end, like who I've never heard of that guy in my life. So it's not great for Davis Mills around him. You know, a couple solid pieces, let's see, we'll have to see what they do pieces. But the Texans don't have a lot of talent and they're not deep. It's all bad for 2022.
Okay. So what about third?
So third for me is actually going to be the Titans. With the departure of A.J. Brown, I think the departure of A.J. Brown is a big deal because when you look at the fill-in here, they have Treylon Burks. They drafted Treylon Burks to kind of fill that A.J. Brown role, another big body receiver, kind of a freak athlete kind of receiver. But can he put together? A.J. Brown was special. I don't know if Treylon Burks is going to be special. I think he can be a good NFL receiver, a nice number 2 receiver. I don't think he's going to be a number 1 receiver in the NFL at any point. But then they also have Robert Woods. Robert Woods, 31 years old, coming off of an ACL tear. He's been one of these guys consistently consistent. Like, you know what you're getting with him. He's a great route runner. He's lost a step in his day, which is why the ACL is a big deal to me. He's already lost a step getting older. If he loses another step, will he be able to get the separation we've been able to see from him in the past from him? So right now it doesn't look good for them. Nick Westbrook-Akina, another guy that had to get some action when Julio Jones was in and out of the lineup in 2021. But they signed Austin Hooper to come in and fill in at tight end. So that's a pretty good piece, a decent run blocker for them. But obviously they have Derrick Henry, right? And that's a big piece of this puzzle. It's really the only reason they're above the Texans for me in this category. They also drafted Hassan Haskins, which as a Michigan fan, I was really excited about. I think will be kind of like Derrick Henry came into the league, sat behind DeMarco Murray for a couple years and shared the backfield, but DeMarco carried most of it, and then Derrick Henry became an animal. I think you'll see the same thing. Derrick Henry probably going to be a beast for a couple more years, but you'll see Hassan Haskins get some run behind him to take some of that pressure off Derrick Henry as he gets older, so Derrick Henry doesn't continue to get hurt. So I think this will be a good 1-2 tandem coming in, and again, could be biased because I'm a Michigan fan, but I think he could be a really good NFL running back for anybody, a tough runner. So, it's not going to be great for the Titans this year. I don't think their passing offense is going to be that good, but they do have Derrick Henry still. So they had to be number 3 for me in terms of skill position players in the AFC South.
Okay. Well, I know you didn't have the Jaguars as first in skills position in this division.
Yeah, you would be exactly right. But they do have pieces. I think people, because the Jags are the Jags and because they basically became a meme in 2021 as a team because of the whole Urban Meyer thing that happened. But look, they have Travis Etienne, who didn't get to play in his rookie year because of, I believe it was the Liz Frank injury, and he didn't get to play. It might have been Achilles. It was one of those two. But either way, Travis Etienne, if you go back and listen to what I was saying about him last season. Like, I think he can be special in this league. I still think he can be a special running back. He can do everything. He can run the ball for you. He can receive. He's not the biggest body, right? But he's big enough to be able to run in between the tackles for you. So I think Travis Etienne can be a special weapon for this offense. They still have James Robinson, who, as we know, was an undrafted free agent that got picked up by the Jags. He's a great number 2 piece. The fact that he's number 2 in an NFL offense is kind of crazy. And then they drafted Snoop Connor this year, who's a guy a lot of people like coming into this year. He's a good change of pace kind of back, not a guy that'll ever be like a starter in the NFL, but another piece for this offense to have, especially when we're talking about a Doug Peterson offense. We know he likes to utilize a lot of running backs. So all 3 of these guys, we'll hear about him at some point in the 2022 season. Then they went out and they signed Christian Kirk to a contract that has taken a lot of scrutiny, and possibly rightfully so. But I'm somebody who really likes Christian Kirk, and the fact that he's going to get an opportunity to shine as a number 1 receiver with Trevor Lawrence as his quarterback, I'm very excited about that. I think he's going to be able to have a very good year. He's an explosive player. I think he's a good receiver, and I think he'll be good for this style of offense that Doug Peterson runs. They also have Marvin Jones, Zay Jones, Laviska Shenault, and one of the biggest draft busts, and probably, I like to be right about draft picks. Laquan Treadwell came into the league and didn't do anything. He's a real depth piece, emergency kind of guy. But then they also brought in Evan Ingram at tight end. As long as he can stay healthy and on the field, he'll be a piece for them. So they have a little bit of depth at every position here, and they have pretty good talent at these positions. It's not amazing talent, but it's enough for them to be second for me going into 2022 in the AFC South.
Okay. Well, let's hear your rundown of the number 1 team in the NFC or the AFC South.
Yes, sir. Finally get to talk about these boys. Talking about the Colts skill position guys. You have Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman Jr., 2 guys that a lot of people think are going to have massive years this year. Jonathan Taylor already did, but people think that with the addition of Matt Ryan, Michael Pittman Jr. is going to solidify himself as one of these top 20 kind of receivers. And then you have Paris Campbell. Do you have Paris Campbell? We'll see for how long, right? And it sucks to say, if Paris Campbell can stay healthy, like in training camp, he's a training camp dog, right? He's great in every training camp. We say it every year. If he stays healthy, the sky's the limit for him. He's so explosive still with all these lower leg injuries. He's still got the explosiveness. He's still able to create separation. So I think Paris Campbell can be a weapon if he stays healthy. Ashton Doolin is another explosive weapon that I think can really, a lot of people are going to hear his name as the year goes on. You don't know him right now because he's been a special teams ace for this team, but he's going to get his chance at receiver and people are going to hear about him. And then the depth pieces on this team, Kiki Cutie, who has been with the Texans in the past. We've seen him come in, make some plays. He's an okay depth piece, definitely just a depth piece. Then you have the guys that the Colts have had for a little while, Desmond Patton, Mike Strawn. And these guys, if you just watch the Colts preseason game against the Lions, they were both making plays. They look like a different class of player than the guys they were playing, which excites me to have them coming, especially Mike Strawn. Mike Strawn's 6'4" guy coming out of the Bahamas, and if he can develop into a star in this league, they have a crazy amount of weapons. The guy that I haven't even mentioned, and I want to save him for last, is Alec Pierce, the rookie, coming out of Cincinnati. This guy's 6'3", runs a 4.3 340, can jump 46 inches. This is a freak athlete. Alec Pierce coming in. He's a freak athlete. He's a deep threat. The route that he's known for is the go route. So as long as he can burn the press, the only thing with Alec Pierce he needs to work on is beating press. But from what I've seen, the Colts have been putting Stephon Gilmore, former Defensive Player of the Year, on Alec Pierce in pretty much every practice, in press coverage, one-on-one, and making him beat him. So I think doing that to him is going to prove dividends. When it comes down to it, the bread and butter of a Frank Reich offense is the tight ends. And we have Mo Alley Cox, Kyle Granson, and Jelani Woods. Unfortunately, we won't have Drew Ogletree, who was probably going to be the number one receiving tight end on this team until he tore his ACL in joint practice with the Lions. So we won't have him, but either way, the weapons on this team, a bunch of these guys are like 6'2" and taller. Pretty much all of them. Paris Campbell's like 6 foot, 6'1". Pretty much everybody else I named here is 6'3" and taller. So we got a bunch of giants and a bunch of speed, a bunch of athleticism. I didn't even talk about the other running backs. Nyheim Hines is going to be taking more slot receiver roles and is going to be playing more of a part in this offense like he did in 2020. We signed Philip Lindsay to be the number 3 back, which Philip Lindsay as a number 3 back is ridiculous. I love that we have him here in Indy. Tyson Williams, we'll see if he makes the roster. He started games like half a year for the Ravens a couple of years ago. So, and he's a tough runner. So I like, of course I'm biased, right? I'm in all the Colts gear. Of course I'm biased. I know what these guys can do. I know this depth chart, inside and out. I've seen a lot of these guys, but I am genuinely very excited for what's been built here, for the development. And it's one of the reasons I like Matt Ryan being here. You have that quarterback experience to help teach these young guys and help these young guys develop the way we need them to. And as long as they just get better as the year goes on, I think it can be special.
You didn't even talk about the offensive line.
Didn't even have to mention the offensive line.
Yeah, so no arguments here.